Chapter 1. Wanderers and Wanderers. Not all those who wander are lost. J.R.R. Tolkien. I went to college in the fall of 1998, 1 year after my family's great exodus from the church. I was making life-altering decisions in a strange new world of academics and co-ed dormitories, when just a year prior my mom had been folding my laundry and my dad packing my school lunches with little notes inside. Even as I explored this new world and formed new friendships, much of my mind was still rooted in what had happened to my family and what I'd left behind. Every night for months, I stayed up way past midnight working on a book, the book, in my mind, about being a pastor's kid. I went into great detail naming names, places, and specific scenarios that had played out not even a year previously, the wounds still fresh and bleeding. I wrote and rewrote the chapter so many times it was like opening an old scab with every edit. I would sit at the little built-in wooden desk in the dorm room, my face glowing in the green light of my brand new PC as the neon cursor blinked to the rhythm of my roommate's snores. In the darkness, I traced the names of strangers etched into the desk's wood, the names of those who had called our dorm room Emerson 159 home. I wondered where they were, what they were doing, and if our dorm room that often smelled like stale pizza and cheap beer, don't worry you guys, I drank Diet Coke, had been part of changing their lives for the better. Did they figure out who they were, what they wanted to do, and who they wanted to become in that tiny space, or did it take much longer to get there? For nearly 6 months, I had been writing and laboring over every word, until one fall night in that college dorm room, I did a final review, and with great satisfaction typed, "The end." The end of an era, the end of a call, the end of a lifetime of ministry, the end of 18 years of people who said they cared, walking away, the end of seeing my parents in pain, the end of being judged, the end of the church rejecting us, the end of gossip, the end of unkept promises, the end of religion, the end of Natalie, pastor's kid. I jumped on my bike and pedaled like a crazy woman to the printing lab, where I was met with a few sleepy graduate students working late into the night. I pulled out my dining card with freshly loaded, hard-earned money, knowing that to print this book would take every penny on it. I put the disc, yes guys, we still use floppy disks then, into the computer, and for 30 minutes I impatiently watched each line roll out in very expensive ink. My very first book. My initials are not PK. I sent the book to the only place I knew to send it, a large Christian ministry that produced books and magazines on all types of topics. In my naivety, youthful optimism, and pride, I was convinced they would receive the pages and call me immediately with a major book deal that would put me on a trajectory towards fame and speaking gigs. I stalked the dormitory mailroom for months, assuming the manuscript had gotten lost or misplaced, because surely they wouldn't pass up this masterpiece. It wasn't until that spring of my freshman year in college, roughly 6 months later, that I got a response. It was a single-page letter attached to the manuscript, simply saying, "No thank you." I scanned farther down to see the person had written a bit more. This hadn't come from a secretary or auto-generated rejection robot. At the bottom of the page were the handwritten words, quote-unquote, "Your story isn't finished yet." We all wander. By the time I got to college, my struggle with the church and my faith, like many of my Christian peers, was silent. Like someone out in the water who appears from a distance to be doing just fine, but in reality is drowning. I wasn't crying out for help or rebelling to get attention, but every day I was wrestling with big questions that I didn't have the guts to ask anyone. For the first time in my life, I wasn't certain of exactly what I believed or why. I wasn't surrounded by lifelong Christians. My roommate was Jewish, and we would talk a little about our faith, but I was rusty in my Old Testament trivia, and any New Testament discussion that took my Jesus off the cross and out of the tomb seemed foreign to her, so we settled on conversations of our common love of cafeteria cereal and bootleg jeans.